now you're only competing against a smaller pool of people. Now you only have maybe 3 or 4 of the people you are fighting to win the job. So that's number one. Number two, expect tougher, deeper questions. Questions such as what we call scenario or what if questions. So what if this in our company, in this organization, these things happened, how would you deal with that? So you have to be prepared. You have to do even more research into types of questions expected, more thinking about how you would answer those questions. So it's now, you still want to have those stories about your skills, your background from previous interviews, but now you also want to think a little deeper about the organization and maybe even have some scenarios of your own. The other thing you can expect is that there might be multiple interviews. There might be a situation where you are brought into a room and there are 5 people in front of you when you're only expecting one person, or you go in for one interview and all of a sudden, oh well, the regional vice president's here and so else is here from out of town, and all of a sudden from one interview you have several. So you want to be prepared for that. You definitely want to bring several items to your second interview. Number one, you want to bring multiple copies of your resume. Not only because you could keep a copy sort of handy in front of you in case you need to refer to it, but a lot of times the hiring manager, if they have a desk like mine, has a million pieces of paper on it, and even though they just had your resume, now it's gone. So anything you can do to ease the process and say, oh, here's another copy, boom, problem solver right there. The other reason you want to have multiple copies of your resume is you just never know when someone's going to join the interview, or when they change their mind and have a panel interview and all of a sudden you have 4 of the people that know nothing about you, so your resume helps that. By this time in the job search process, you want to have your reference list chosen and have it printed out, matching your resume, same style, but just with the references, name of the person, job title, contact information. And then if you have a portfolio, I love portfolios, and you can have an online portfolio and just give the address to it, or LinkedIn profile could even serve as a portfolio in a way. But sometimes people have a hard portfolio, such as creative people, and it's just great to bring that in because the one thing that employers are always looking for is proof of performance. And you can talk about it, tell stories, that's all great, but if you can say, let me tell you about a time I developed this thing, and then all of a sudden pull this out of your briefcase and show this portfolio, and they can see that performance with their, that's fantastic. And then the last thing I would bring is either your smartphone or a notepad, something that you can jot down notes right after, not during the interview, but right after the interview, as soon as you're in the elevator or in the lobby or whatever, write down some notes to remind you of things that were key points that you either wanted to remember about the interview for a follow-up interview or to use in your thank you note. And I've found that if you don't write them down right away, by the time you take the commute to go home or wherever you're going, you've forgotten a couple things. So that's always a nice little tip to remember. References are a really interesting subject. I have a lot of people ask me, do I have to use former bosses? Who can I use as a reference? And the thing is, you want choose references based on what they're going to say about you. So sometimes it could be a former boss, but it could be a former coworker, it could be a client, it could be someone that's involved in a stakeholder in another situation. So it doesn't have to be former bosses. The key is that they know you both professionally and personally, they have a connection to you, and they can address key things about your past performance, your possible future performance, and any other elements that pertain particular to the job itself. The 2 big issues with references are, one, first picking the references, and the second thing is then talking to your references. A lot of times people ask someone to be a reference, and then the job search goes on and on and on, and the job search sort of forgets to keep the reference updated. And so can you prep a reference? Of course you should. This person's going to be trying to sell you to the employer. So you want to make sure you provide the reference with a copy of your resume, ideally the job listing itself, and then maybe a couple of key points about your background or skill set, whatever it is that you think the employer is most looking for. And then finally, once you've had the interview and you've handed off that reference sheet, send a note or text or phone to those reference people and say, boy, expect something to happen in the next couple of days. Do you want to talk about this at all so we can go over it? Because it's just a win for you, because you want the reference to speak highly of you, and the reference, if they've said yes, they want to speak highly of you too. So you need to, so yes, definitely prep them, get them ready, and let them do their job.